All right, about money. What is money? There's a lot of theories about that, which shows you something in itself, that it's the thing which dominates our entire lives and no one's quite sure what it is. But when you talk about magic, I mean, saying something is magic doesn't mean it's not necessarily real. I mean, I always thought about the essence of politics, if you think about it, is that politics is a domain where things which would otherwise be completely insane forms of behavior actually work. So, you know, if I could convince everybody in the world I could breathe underwater, right, and I tried, I'd still die, right? But if I could convince everybody in the world I'm king of France, I would be king of France. You know? So that's what makes it. But you know, the problem is it wouldn't work if I actually told them that. You know, hey, like everybody should believe I'm king of France, so I could be king of France, right? So it's why it always seems like a fraud, which is and like magic. But money is basically that. That what money is a promise. It's a commitment to do something in the future, and that it's. At least 97 to 98% of money now circulating at any point doesn't refer to anything that exists now. It's a promise of something in the future. So what you're doing is you're selling each other your sort of trust in the future existence of a system in the same form, which is why, I mean, I think there's a direct relation to our ability to imagine alternatives and the ability to create these sort of spiraling structures of debt. Because if you can't imagine any fundamentally different alternative to capitalism, all you get to imagine is a future which is exactly the same, with more and more money and more and more exploitation. So the very idea of freedom comes down to our ability to buy into capitalism, which is essentially, we work 9 to 5 like slaves, and then we buy, an interest in our own future exploitation, which is what money and debt actually are. Now, which is also why, and this is, I think, really important, there's always credit bubbles and crashes. It's an inherent part of the system because of the nature of money is so ephemeral. But, I mean, there's a reason it says, in God we trust in the money, right? Yeah. It keeps collapsing, and then they have to sort of staple it all back together again. And the only way they can staple it all back together again is to convince everybody that there's really no other way to do it. Because nobody really likes the system very much. And as a result, the moment a real alternative seems to appear on the scene, it becomes really difficult to do that. I mean, the example that I think is really telling is the 1930s. Why is it that, like, that one time when there was a crash, suddenly it turned into this Great Depression and they couldn't pick out of it until there was World War II? Well, one of the reasons was the existence of the Soviet Union, which seemed to provide an alternative that was growing at 10% a year even though everybody else was crashing. It wasn't a great alternative, but any alternative that seems remotely plausible throws the entire system into crisis. So the question for us is, how do we do that? How do we present a slightly more palatable, hopefully, alternative that seems plausible to people? And, it'll start happening by itself, because that task of convincing people there's really just nothing else you can do than put this back together again. I know you don't like it, but come on. Will fall apart, and the money value will fall apart, and it opens enormous possibilities.